The most important topic in Britain. Women and their genitals. Peter, I have a question for you. This is going to be a more fun segment. What percentage of women would you estimate have a penis?
God, it's a good thing this is not a trick question. 0.
Right. Well, most of our political class disagrees with you.
Yeah.
Right. And we'll get into exactly why. I mean, you know exactly why, which is why you're on the show. But I wanted to, because obviously you're from America, so you probably aren't aware that the the woke capture of our politicians is so far gone at this point. Again, when we were giving the talks in Portland, and we were like, look, this is coming. It's shocking how quickly 5 years this has taken to take over our entire political class. Right.
And just as a quick pause on that, lest anybody think it's just in the Anglosphere, it's not.
No,
it's throughout the world. I just wrote the foreword to Rajiv Malhotra's book, Snakes in the Ganga, where he talks about wokeism as a neo-colonial export that's going to Indian institutions. So it's not just a UK thing, and it's not just in the Anglosphere. It's a worldwide thing.
I mean, years ago, I would be like, look, actually, men probably do have rights because they're human beings. So I was approaching, from the liberal perspective, actually, men deserve a bit of consideration. And there are a lot of Indians who are like, we are getting hammered over here.
I just want to say something that's really important. Wokeism can work in any language, but English is the language of wokeism. And so, real quick, because this is so important. So the way that wokeism works, there's only one way it works. It works by having a dual meaning of a word.
Yes.
Inclusion, diversity, equity,
racism,
anti-racism, right.
Sexism.
And so what happens when wokeism attempts to colonize or neo-colonize, whatever phrase you want to use, metastasize into another culture, it does so by use of English words. And so that's why you can see videos of like...
Latinx.
Or you can see videos in India of someone speaking, I don't speak any Indian languages, but
Punjab,
what a Punjab or whatever, Hindi, and then equity, diversity. So... Because, for example, diversity means intellectual homogeneity. Inclusion means creating a space where people feel welcome, and if people say anything that can make other people feel welcome, it's not inclusion. It's not inclusion. So inclusion means restricting speech. But you can't...
It also means specifically exclusion.
It means exclusion, right.
Creating a boundary.
But you can't... only the primary meaning of a word translates. That's how wokeism spreads in another culture.
Yeah, and just to be clear... in Mapping the Margins, Kimberly Crenshaw is explicit about this. Yeah. I've done videos about this where she's explicit. We're literally going to, racism is a great example where most people view racism as an intention, right? You have looked at that guy and said, no, I don't like him because he's black or because he's Jewish or whatever. Right. And so you've discriminated against him. But that is not the same as looking at an outcome, two different outcomes, and say, well, that's racism as well. These must be two different things, and yet they've expanded the definition of racism to mean both things. Right. Because if you're having a fair process, if people are diverse, if they're not all the same, then you will end up with different outcomes for different kinds of groups. You must, if they're going through a fair process. It has to be an unfair process to get the same result across the board, no matter what it is you're doing. Literally anything.
And we know...
But racism is used for both of those things. So they've included the antonym of the word.
Correct.
To get to the position they want. And so you're outflanked no matter where you move.
Well, yeah, that's Robin DiAngelo's Kafka trap. I say you're a racist. You say, no, I'm not. I say that's proof of your racism. But why doesn't that work with rhinoceroses?
Great question.
You're a rhinoceros. No, I'm not. That's proof that you're a rhinoceros.
Great question.
Like Andrew Doyle's new book, he talks about the Salem witch trials and how it's there. Yeah.
And it is a clever rhetorical trap as well. They've worked very hard. People don't realize that this has been brewing in academia for like 50 years. Yeah. This has been going on for a very long time.
And Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay write about that in Cynical Theories. Yep. It comes from the French intellectuals.
It comes from the French intellectuals being filtered through American legal academia.
Yeah. Derek Bell, Harvard, and that's the key thing. That's why, from our previous segment, where people get those ideas, we know where they get them. Yeah. This is not a mystery.
No, we've read all their texts. Right. Like, I've done a series on this website about all of these texts.
In fact, not only do we know, not only are they not trying to hide it, they're screaming about it from the rooftops. Yeah. They're demanding the books be institutionalized.
Kimberly Crenshaw goes on debates and podcasts and talks about her work. She's the person who coined the term intersectionality.
Yes.
She's one of the key movers of this. Anyway, so... before we move on, right? Again, if you want to support us, go over to the website. I'm telling you, liberalism is a universal acid, and it's because of Martha Nussbaum being unable to defeat the comprehensive liberals, which is what I go through, because I'm going through Claire Chambers, a 2008 essay, where she's critiquing Martha Nussbaum's Rawlsian political position. And they're like, oh, we should have limited liberalism. But
you and I have talked about that.
We have, because the political liberal is just basically outflanked and has to admit they're not a real liberal. But liberalism is a term that, at least in 2008, had a great deal of shine on it. It was a very respectable thing to be a liberal, and therefore to be a comprehensive liberal was to be a better liberal. And I'll let you go and figure out, go and list it and see why. But I'm telling you, man, liberalism is essentially going to be continually one-upped without conservatism. If you're not a conservative and a liberal, you will end up having liberalism as this universal acid that destroys all of our institutions, all of our social institutions, like being a man, being a woman. And this is why the British political class is in the position it's in now. So let's begin with Ed Balls, the former Labour Secretary of State and current daytime TV host, speaking to Kathleen Stock. Let's just watch this. It's just mad.
Sexual reproduction depends on us and recognising males and women.
But you're saying to somebody who transitions that they're not a woman?
I don't go up to them and say that.
But you are saying that?
I'm happy to, if in general I am, because...
Do you understand that is the thing which makes people feel as though the debate's polarised? I understand that,
but I also understand
some people say
people like you
anybody
really
can be a woman, and other people say they can't be a woman, and actually most people in the middle think, well, actually...
Well, how do you know what most people in the middle think, Ed? Have you polled them?
Well, I mean, I think that I do know what most people think.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
And you think I'm wrong?
Well, I think if you look at the polling on this, it depends how you phrase the question. If you ask, can a woman have a penis, most people say no.
Oh, yeah, but I agree with that.
Ed Balls is a great example of someone who thinks that
with an
unfortunate
name.
Yeah, men can be women. Again, he was a former Secretary of State, currently daytime TV host on the most popular morning show in Britain. And he's there going, yeah, well, I mean, anyone could become a woman. No.
I wonder if he'd sleep with someone who claims they're a woman.
Well, I'm sure he said, well, I'm married. You know, I can't. But you can see he's not really thought his position through. And what I love is that people on Twitter started noticing, just look how scared he looks. We can go to the next one, John. You see that there's a kind of sweaty fear about him. Like, he's like, hang on a second.
Yeah, you know, my supposition is that's what happens when people know they're not being honest.
I think it's also when they know that they're actually in the crosshairs of a sniper, which is the Twitter mob, that will get you cancelled if you do not toe the party line.
Yeah.
Right. I think he knows he doesn't know the subject. He knows what the politically correct thing is.
I can assure you, I just had dinner with Kathleen the other night. I can assure you she knows the subject. She's well published in the subject. Oh, she's also, with me, a founding faculty fellow at the University of Austin. Right. We've had a lot of conversations with her. And so he is clearly going up against someone that, right.
But I loved her little response there. He's like, well, I think I do know. And she's like, I can see that.
Right.
You know, those are very, very funny. Right. But you can see just how nervous he is. And so sometimes you just get Labour MPs, and the Labour are the left-wing party in this, or one of the left-wing parties. And you just get literally statements like this. Elected politician. J.K. Rowling's wrong. A woman can have a penis because J.K. Rowling had said women can't have penises.
I'm telling you, it's both a mass delusion and a cultural derangement.
I mean, you've seen, have you seen, what was that, Chernobyl series? Did you watch that?
No.
Right, there's a series called Chernobyl and on Netflix, and it's really, really good because it's a sort of 4-part docudrama about the Chernobyl explosion, right? And at one part, they send people up onto the roof to see what's happened after the explosion, and there's graphene or whatever it is all over the place, right? And obviously this is like the core in the reactor. It can never be outside the reactor. And so he goes down and goes, there's graphite on the roof, and there's like, no, there's not. It's like, no, there is. It's like, no, there's not. Go check again. You're wrong. You know, because ideologically, the Soviet apparatus wouldn't accept this. You know, so, and they do a good job of explaining the socialist mindset. You know, no, we define reality. Right. You have to figure out how to match that. That's where this is. You know, a woman can have a penis. Okay, Stella, noted genius. So what percentage of women have penises? That's the question. God, you say zero.
This is just...
That's one controversial position.
I said, this is so stupid. Like, I mean, it really is just so stupid, yet it's dominating. Like, it dominates the discussion in America. The Supreme Court Justice, she doesn't know what a woman is. Nobody knows. Yeah. I'm not a biologist. No one knows. I mean, this is so idiotic. That's why I think this is inherently unsustainable, because I think people know they're lying.
True, but like communist China has been going for, 70 years, 80 years now. Soviet Union lasted about the same amount of time. This can go on for generations.
We have, well, maybe I was going to say we have mechanisms, but maybe the same mechanisms that we have keep people espousing things that they clearly know are false.
Maybe, but none of these people seem to have paid the price for saying things that are just demonstrably untrue. But again, like I said, you say 0%.
Not only have they not paid the price, the people who have paid the price are the people who have said things that are true.
Those
absolutely
are the people
who have paid the price.
That's absolutely true. They are the people who are paying the price for telling the truth. So you say 0%. Well, Keir Starmer says 0.1%. The leader of the Labour Party, going to be our next Prime Minister, earlier this year was like, well, 99.9% of women don't have a penis. But of course, that leaves the 0.1% who do. So 0.1% of women have a penis, according to our future Prime Minister. And he says, of course, 99% don't. It's like, but
so is the reason that people think this is important is because if you have a penis, then
you can go into the women's bathrooms.
Yeah, you can participate in women's sports. Yep. You can. So the reason that this is important is because we're predicating public policy upon it. Yes. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. This is informing who can use what spaces. And women are like, hang on a second, we actually want spaces for women only.
Yeah.
Which is totally appropriate.
100%. Constantine Kissin had a great tweet. He said, my buddy said something to the extent of, someone should do a study of why is it that once a man is convicted of a crime, there's something about the inside of a courtroom that turns him into a woman.
Great question. Because we saw this happened in Scotland with Nicola Sturgeon. Probably the result of why Nicola Sturgeon was the leader of the Scottish National Party, the First Minister of Scotland. She thought that women could have penises, and it destroyed her career because a rapist was like, I'm a woman, put me in the women's prison. And she basically got grilled on, I forgot to include it in this segment actually. She got grilled and it was a massive embarrassment and she stepped down. And it's like, right, okay, so that's one party leader's career. It's ruined.
But how could that be if we were constantly assured that would never happen?
I don't know.
It's a complete mystery.
So anyway, let's move on. That was Labour and then the SNP. And then this is the Liberal Democrat leader. Let's watch.
I think we need to manage this and think about it and debate it with a bit more maturity and a bit more compassion.
Well, that's what Sir Keir Starmer once said to me, and he never did answer the question, can a woman have a penis?
Well, I've just answered that question.
They can.
Listen, I've made it really clear that if people, the vast majority of people will have the same gender as their biological sex, but a small number won't.
So a woman can have a penis?
Well, quite clearly.
Clearly, Peter. Clearly a woman can have a penis.
I will say, when we see things like this, when someone doesn't obfuscate, we should thank them for being honest.
Absolutely. But what I love about this is that he's clearly using a set of rational precepts, right?
Right.
And so what he's saying, when he says clearly, he's not saying, I have met a woman with a penis. He's saying, I can logically deduce from the premises that we're using that given if what I've said is true, we literally through the syllogism of it, we have to arrive at the fact that a woman can have a penis, which everyone is like, obviously that's nonsense, mate.
Right.
Obviously, everyone knows that's nonsense from personal experience. But because he's using a form of logic that is total nonsense, he has, literally, imagine him saying clearly they can have a penis. Mad. Anyway, don't ask them what a woman is, though. The previous leader of the Liberal Democrats in 2019 was asked about this. And this is a quick clip. Look at the fear on her face there, right? Because a caller just phoned in and was like, could you define woman for me? And it went as well as you might expect. Let's watch.
So please, can you tell me what a woman is?
Well, she's baffled.
I know I'm a woman, and I think we know what we are, and I think all women are important, and their rights need to be protected.
So how can you tell what a woman is?
Well, I'm just sort of trying to understand, what you're getting at. I think
she's obfuscating.
We know when we engage with each other, when we know if we are a woman, right? And I can tell you that I am, right? So, and we're not going to, start a scenario where we go and perform inspections on people, are we?
Okay, so I just want to comment. So I can tell you, what did she say? I can assure you I am.
Yeah, how?
So so how? And what if someone else says she isn't? But
I disagree. I don't think she's a woman.
Neither do I.
I just don't believe her.
Yeah.
Now what? What objective standard are you going to use to prove?
But the fact that she's so evidently it's someone's alleged feelings of self-identity that make that the case. But notice the difference in the second reaction and the first. The second reaction, she was obfuscating, and people. It is completely justified to go after that. But in the first one, and I'm not talking about the arguments necessarily, but there will be some people who will obfuscate and there are some people who shouldn't. And we should always hold the people, hold everybody's argument to account, obviously. But we should hold the individuals who obfuscate like her to task.
Yeah. And like you said, we should be very thankful to the chair of the the leader of the Liberal Democrats who's just like, well, clearly they can. Well, just say it. Just say it. You know,
we know you think it. I feel the same way about jihadis who want to kill apostates or blasphemers. Do you want to kill a woman who's committed adultery? I do. Okay, there's a man you can have a conversation with.
Exactly. I'm not having a conversation with those people. But the things for Joe Swinson there, I actually feel kind of bad for her because I think she genuinely didn't have an answer. Like you could see the confusion in her face.
Well, then she should say, "I don't know."
Yeah, exactly. But that's terrible, isn't it? Yeah. What's a woman? I don't know. What do you?
Well, it's better than what she did there.
Yeah, absolutely. But still, that's humiliating. Absolutely humiliating.
Well, okay. My take on that would be it would be humiliating because she wasn't honest.
Oh yeah, totally.
Whereas the other guy, he's probably just delusional.
Yeah, it's both, but it's still humiliating either way. But I mean, there are some people who disagree in the left at this point, and they call them TERFs, such as the chair of the Labour Party here, Annelise Dobbs, and this is her opinion.
Let me ask you about it, Davey, before you go. Do you agree with him that he says that quite clearly women can have a penis?
Well, I'm a woman and, it's rather early in the morning to be talking about penises, frankly, Kay, but, I do not have one. And ultimately, when we look at sex and biology, which is, I think, how most people would look at these issues, of course, women do not have a penis. There are people who've gone through gender reassignment. So there's trans women, they've changed their gender, but sex is not the same as gender. And I think it's important that we keep the two separate.
Right. So you can see
there's an honest. Okay. So I just want to say this is really important. She's on the left, right?
She is on the left.
Okay. Go back if you want. Okay. So one of the reasons that this is important is I personally do not view this as a right-left issue.
No, it's an honesty issue.
It's an honesty issue. And I don't know if you've seen, they're pretty ghastly. And so I haven't tweeted them out or promoted them, but I don't know if you've seen the surgeries of people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
For anyone wondering, I'm preparing a premium podcast about this because I don't dare put it out outside of the paywall because it's horrific.
Yeah, it is ghastly.
It's just...
And still, those humps of non-working flesh are not penises.
No. And the inverted penis is not a vagina.
Right.
I hate to tell you, but the point
and I would still add, in fact, I would especially add that people who want to live that way should be in. If you want to live that way, if you're above 18, 18 or older, and those we can quibble about what age.
Yeah, I'd say like mid-20s or something, but it's fine.
Okay, but if you're an adult, fine. If you're an adult, that's fine.
Legally adult.
We'll go with that. You should be entitled to not be harassed. You should be entitled to live your life any way you want, but that's not what we're talking about here. And I do not think that this is a right-left issue. You cannot change your chromosomes. I think that this is just an issue of being honest and being sincere. And you can find lunatics on both sides of the political aisle.
But it's also it's like a statement of ideological commitment, right? It's again like saying this is my ID card for the party, because the party is saying this is the party line. You're going to believe that women can have penises.
Then I wouldn't want to be in that party. That's a party of deranged people.
Oh, absolutely. But it's INGSOC, it's the Soviet Union. That's what we're talking about. It's this ideological commitment to an orthodoxy that doesn't represent reality. It's not tethered to reality. And they
and just think about that. For I don't really know your religious views, but
I'm an atheist.
I am too, obviously. But so we went from millennium in which we pretended to know things we didn't know, and now we're pretending not to know things literally everybody knows.
Yes,
it's an interesting switch in the last few years.
Yeah, very interesting. And I thought we'd just end this segment with asking the activists. How do they feel about it? Can women have penises? Let's watch.
We love girl dick. 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 We love girl dick.
We love what?
We love girl dick!
The very sane people who are waving the trans pride flag say, quote, "We love girl dick."
Wow.
Very informed.
Wow.
Anyway, let's move on from that. So, DEI training.
Wow.
Big fan of DEI training, Peter?
I'm still kind of recovering from how stupid that was. I think I've lost 2 IQ points as a result of this.
That's why I was inflicted.
Yeah, it's just it's a shame that's what's become of the West, right?
This is literally the political dialogue in Britain at the moment. This is all very recent stuff.
Don't talk about inflation. Don't talk about price of goods. Don't talk about the war in Ukraine. Don't talk about the
consequence of immigration. Don't talk about anything.
Right.
Talk about whether women have penises. Like, you know, 13 years ago, the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats came into a coalition in Britain, and they were asked, "Are you going to build nuclear power plants?" And they were like, "No, it'll take 10 years." So, yeah, okay, but I intend to be here in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
I'd like super cheap energy that was super environmentally friendly and super productive and super safe.
Now look what's happening in Germany, right?
Exactly. They've got to build coal plants, and they're dependent on Russia. And it's like,
I just had dinner with Bjorn Lomborg last night. If anybody doesn't know his work or Michael Schellenberger's work, Apocalypse Never is fantastic. Yeah. Okay, next story. Sorry.
Anyway, I will never stop saying nuclear power was the way to go, and we haven't. So just going to leave that there.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as premium videos. This one on Daycare Will Destroy the West. And if you want to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.